Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to take part in this conference. I and my colleague, we are from the Bank of Russia, from the Statistics and Data Management Department. Of course, I realize that maybe my presentation contained a lot of ad concerning financial accounts and financial balance sheets as a part of the system for national accounts. And maybe I make a lot of pleasant words concerning the SNA framework, but yes, I want to pay attention to the concepts underlying macroeconomic statistics, especially after the crisis of 2008. Then I want to pay attention to measuring household financial wealth for Russia and also at cross-country comparability. What issue arise after the 2008 financial crisis? So many authors of the working papers questioned if the availability of data or is a macroeconomic theory was in time to foresee this crisis, and also the reliability of current set of financial statistics. What I mean about reliability, I understand it as a consistency between a different set of macroeconomic statistics. Now, I will show you that when compiling our data, we try to make fully consistency all of these macroeconomic data sets. And as a base of it, of course, is the first comes system of national accounts, then monetary statistics, statistics of external sector, government finance statistics, and business statistics. Here I mean banking statistics. In 2008 SNA, we found new features for financial sector. We found a new recommendation for measuring financial services and further delineation of financial sector presentation. We find that focuses should be made on other financial intermediation such as shadow banking activity, microfinancing, separate presentation of insurance sector and private pension fund sector. So, as Krugman in 2018 noted that there were no serious lack of data, but lack of attention to the right data. And he paid attention to the data on the financial side, primarily on shadow banking activity, housing prices, and most significantly on household debt. Of course, this system of national accounts is really a conceptual framework, and if you try to analyze all the data and starting from production side and then moving to the financial side, and you always state in all of the data that balancing between and this system comprises a lot of balancing macroeconomic based macroeconomic equation in it. And yes, I understand that GDP is in a habit to measure all of the indicators, but I like the Stiglitz-Senfit-Tusi report. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I show you that, yes, it's very important. But because, yes, this report, maybe for all the people, this report only summarizes our decision about our making decision process and the importance of paying more attention on well-being. And so he stressed the importance of statistical indicators for designing policy decision aiming at the progress of society. And so this report noted that economic developments, including broader use of new information technology, huge improvements in education and a lot of financial innovation had much influence on society as a whole, and this is ultimately augmented the use of statistical data to perceive trends and decision making by a wide range of use. And I stressed here that concern about about the concern about the relevant indicators as a measure of societal well-being, to look more on well-being, to look more on societal side, and the consequences of the political decision, mainly in our case, a monetary decision and all state policy decision, and the misplaced focus on GDP as a measure of economic well-being in the pre-crisis year. In fact, they proclaimed the necessary to establish a complex statistical system that could be provide a full set of metrics, and the starting point should be here for household financial wealth, simultaneously combining with disposable income. Here it is data received from OECD database, and for Russia we prepare indicators ourselves. So what should I mention here? So that, for example, for Russia, yes, we started from 2012 because Russia began to compile financial accounts and financial balance sheets in 2015 from 2012. So we can see here that as for Russia and the West majority of countries, the household sector play a role of creditor for all of the economy. In some countries, we see that the crisis of 2008 lead to the problems in households' financial assets and financial liabilities. So we see that, for example, for such countries as Latvia, Lithuania, and also in Poland, we see that negative sign. It means that net financial transactions have a negative side. What I want to pay attention for Russia, so you see the sharp rise in this indicator in 2015, and then I will show you some additional graphics that can make some comments on this. But what it was interesting for me, interestingly, is that even in 1959, Goldsmith offered concise and distinct features for the statistical framework, which contributes to the comparative study of economic growth. I appreciate very much his work on financial structure and development, of course, as a subject for international and comparative studies. And he also mentioned in that it will be a fruitful work with International Association for Research, Income and Wealth to compile, to conduct all the panels for 10 countries, even in 1957. But he mentioned also in this paper that yes, it was a problem with the Soviet Union, with the lack of data, and yes, of course, it was. It would be very interesting to compare the financial structure development in with planned economy, but now we have not planned economy. But then in my presentation, I will show you some of the slides. And what I want to stress here that he recommended at that time a panel of main statistical indicators to be used in the study of financial structure and developments. And we, as the publisher of the official statistical data, we followed this recommendation as well. And we present some of data in very interesting format, in the modern format of dashboards. So you can see here graphics concerning the dynamic and structure of household financial assets on the left side, and I want to pay some attention to the standard components of monetary analysis, as of course we all understand that our economy is bank-oriented economy, our financial sector is bank-oriented, so of course the guarantees and deposits are denominated in the structure of household financial assets. And so on the right side, you can see the data from monetary statistics. Deposits in the national accounts have the largest share in the structure. And I should mention here that in money supply, household deposits is always stable and nearly 50% of the money supply. So this in this case, I just want to lead my discussion concerning the mergers of these two statistics and consistency between it, because monetary statistics is one of the data sources for compiling financial balance sheets and financial accounts. In this graph, we can see that in the Russian Federation, the role of non-bank financial intermediaries remains insignificant. So we can see that banks in household debt, I move to the liability side, comprise nearly 90%. Then I add here the data from banking statistics. Now, according to the banking statistics, and yes, it's a very interesting issue concerning debt sustainability of Russian households. So we see that from 2012 to 2019, the percentage of mortgage debt rises nearly 2 times. Yes, and it's very interesting now to focus on the sustainability of Russian households. Then I add here data from external statistics. There you can see household domestic and external borrowing. You can see here, of course, that dominated is the domestic borrowings. About data presentations, these new instruments allow ad hoc analysis, and I invited you to the Bank of Russia to see these dashboards and all others which you produced for monetary aggregates as well. So we can see here that we can move easily from stocks to stock changes and also to see the structure and to operate the structure and to see the currency breakdowns, the sources of borrowings and the instruments as well. So this is an address here. You can follow it if you want. And now I move to household financial net worth and net financial transactions. And as I mentioned on the second slide, if I'm not mistaken, so if you can see at the right graphics concerning net financial transaction, you can see here that from 2018, a deep growth in net financial transactions. And it reflects, of course, these indicators. So on the left side, you see it's a financial net worth. It's the data from financial balance sheets of households. And you can see here the inclined line, but when we see it, financial transactions which are not contained revelations on revelations effects, you can see here that, yes, it's a big rise, but we can see here another ways of this line. So in the next slide, I would like to pay attention to household financing. So it's a loan transaction as percentage of GDP. And yes, we can see here that for Russia, 2015, the year of 2015 wasn't so good for household sectors. But nowadays you can see the relieving tendencies. On the right side, you can see the comparative two lines just to compare household net financial transactions to net disposable income and net financial transaction to GDP. So nearly the same lines for the Russian Federations, but of course the different schedule. And we add here on the slide, but we have a little more slides, I suppose, in cross-country comparisons in our work. Yes, household financial net worth, this data, yes, all come from OECD databases. And we use data from financial balance sheets of the Russian federations. We see that it is in line with the upward trends of these indicators in all countries. So the same alliance. And I think it's very interesting to see here cross-country comparisons. You see here that in Russia we have a lot of bigger part. The biggest part is concern currency and deposits investments of households. The same situation is in Slovak Republic, also in Slovenia, in Turkey, and the Czech Republic. So it's fully bank-oriented financial sectors in these countries, and because of this, we put attention to when making research to join all of these data. So we can use monetary statistics published on the CBR. Also, we can use financial accounts and financial balance sheets. Of course, we can use we must use all the system of national accounts which produced by the Federal Statistics Office. And so as the main conclusions, I would like to stress that the use of SNA framework and monetary statistics can provide researchers, as I have already said, and policymakers with broader set of information resources required for household financial wealth analysis. Combining these SNA indicators with monetary statistic data enhance monetary analysis as such, yes, and which contain more detailed information regarding household financial assets liabilities to look at monetary decisions in the broader way. Monetary statistics data give an additional information on currency structure, and banking statistics contribute to the additional details of these indicators on household financial wealth, providing data on specific segments on credit markets such as mortgages. Broader use of different kinds of statistics such as the financial accounts and financial balance sheets of the SNA combining with monetary statistics provide a wide understanding of measured determinants of household wealth accumulation, and the further steps to provide analytical framework of household wealth should be a combination of micro and macro level data, namely compiling distributional national accounts and construction of satellite accounts to describe other objective indicators of well-being. And the SNA concept should be the base for these developments, in our opinion, to provide the consistency among different statistical data sets and to facilitate the systemic approach in analyzing economic performance and to make as perfect as well monetary decisions and state policy decisions. And thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I invite Andrei Tatarinov to comment as a discussant.
I was happy to hear that this translation provided into Russian, but as far as I have already prepared my remarks in English, I think it would be better to try me to pronounce them instead of translating, because it will take, I think, more time, especially taking into account the variety of themes today. I have to play the role of jack of all trades, kind of something. The difference is very high, but thank you. I try to express some of my visions. The paper is devoted to one of the most complicated issues of macroeconomic statistics, measurement of welfare and impact on economic development. Macroeconomic assessment of economic well-being and sustainability is also recognized by the UN Statistics Commission as one of the priority areas of research programs in the sphere of national accounts, and development of macroeconomic measures of welfare has a very long history. We know it was mentioned in the presentation. The discussion was intensified greatly after the publication of Stiglitz and Fitoussi report in 2009. And the authors certainly studied methodological background of the problem and explored the sources of necessary data. They proposed an approach based on combination of SNA financial accounts and monetary statistics data to assessment of households' financial well-being, which is understood as an integral and very important part of the well-being as a whole. Results of the presented study, which I would determine as a feasibility study of future research, covers various aspects of households, assets and liabilities, and give quite a consistent picture of the present position and dynamics of household financial wealth. Though the analysis doesn't include, unfortunately, flows of income, the provided result, at my view, proves soundness of the proposed approach. However, implementation of the described methodology, I think, will need further development. Cross-country comparisons of such indicators as value of assets, liabilities, or net worth of household sector need attraction of additional data. It is also necessary to take into account that all calculations are carried out for the combined household sector and non-profit institutions serving households sector. The composition of this latter may differ greatly across countries. In some countries, it includes big enough units which possess very valuable assets. For example, in the UK, nearly all the universities are included into non-profit institution sector. I think we also have to take into consideration effect of scale, from my point of view. For example, in the UK, though it is not included in this comparison, but we have it on the earth, the value of household sector financial assets exceeds GDP more than 10 times, and net worth more than 5 times, while in Russia, something like 70%, both. Does it mean that the specifics of capital accumulation process in different types of countries should be also taken into account? The last research, for example, published by RBK yesterday, September the 16th, shows that that in Russia, 56% of population have no savings at all. It can be assumed that the measures proposed by the authors for the further development of this methodology, in particular the compilation of distributional national accounts or satellite accounts, will help to obtain a more complete picture of the financial well-being of the household sector. One of these fields of study could be the construction of matrices of social accounts or more detailed flows of funds tables, for example. Thank you very much. I finished.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it very much. Yes, and I agree with you. We need further development. Yes, it would be interesting to add some graphics concerning comparison with other countries, not for emerging market countries and some Eastern European countries, but as UK and US as well, in order to understand, yes, to compare the different economics with the different level for developments. Yes, I agree with you, and I appreciate very much the idea of compilation of social accounts. Yes, it would be very interesting, especially for Russia. And as we can see the result of distributional accounts compiled for the United States, for the Federal Reserve, and yes, we appreciate it very much. It's very interesting, and I suppose it would be very interesting for Russia as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments and questions? In English, in Russian? Yeah, Russian.
A very interesting presentation. Your first chart where you showed a number of countries where they had negative flows into basically negative net acquisition of financial assets. Usually that's preceding a crisis, right? In the US, when it turned negative, then we had the crisis within a couple of years. I'm just wondering, does this always have a bad outcome? Is it usually a bad sign?
No, because I think no, thank you for the question. I think, of course, no, because it's not concerning the indebtedness. We should much focus on debt, on development in debt and development in income, I suppose, in this case.
Thank you.